What's up guys, Asian here again with another Elsweyr patch notes review, and today we're going over 5.0.3, the latest iteration of the Elsweyr PTS patch notes. So for you guys who haven't really keeping track of the PTS cycle so far, this is the second to last PTS patch. So we had 5.0.0, 0.1, 0.2, and this is 0.3. So we're on the fourth week of the PTS. We have one more patch coming up, 5.0.4, next week on Monday. And then from there, we will have the actual launch of Elsweyr coming the following Monday. So we still have about 2 weeks left of testing to do in the PTS before Elsweyr goes live. Now 5.0.3, much like 5.0.1, is a little bit of a smaller overall patch, a couple of fixes, couple of balances, but it's mainly focused in on fixing a couple of bugs and things like that. 5.0.4, we should see a little bit more beefiness when it comes to overall balance changes, but 5.0.4, the last PTS patch before actual launch, has also traditionally been fairly light when it comes to rebalances, mainly because they're just trying to fix up any last sort of game-breaking bugs, any sort of very detrimental bugs before any sort of DLC or expansion goes live. Then of course there's also the changes that they might make between 5.0.4 and when Elsweyr goes live. So we actually have 2 more rounds of changes that are going to be coming through here in the before Elsweyr is released. So we're just going to go through 5.0.3 again. This is a fairly light patch notes, but we will cover things that are important here, mainly focusing in on combat changes. So there's the new Arsenum event. What I'm personally excited about is the fact that the Maelstrom outfit style pages are now going to be available, which is going to be awesome. This is great. So I'm definitely going to be farming VMA for these style pages. And then Elsweyr, so they didn't fix really anything with Necromancer. So currently there's a bug with the Necromancer with the one of the passives, which is kind of screwing up weaving and screwing up your rotations, but there's no fix for that here. These are just more visual fixes. Dragons, not really all that important. Crafting economy, not that important here. Sunspire Trial, so they did fix a couple things, or should they tweaked a couple things with the Sunspire Trial. Nothing really here in general that's really all that important. With Yolnakreen, his focused fire ability, that's sort of the Sororia stack mechanic, will no longer arbitrarily prefer some players over others when choosing a target. So in 5.0.2 and previous iterations, it will always select the same 2 targets. So this should mean that we should be getting it on different people now. And then a couple of fixes here and there, but mostly it's that change with focused fire, which is the big change with Yolnakreen, which was a bug, so nice that they've managed to fix that. Laquestes will now cast Relentless Gale only once. I'm not 100% certain what ability that is. And they also adjusted his flight maneuvers for better timing and visual improvement. Naviantas, this is probably going to be the biggest changes overall. So the followers that spawn during the fight will be a little bit further apart from each other. They'll also continue to spawn additional monsters during certain events in hard mode. And then they increase the health of the downstairs sort of mechanic in hard mode. And they also adjusted his flight maneuvers to increase speed, improve turns, and transition to landing better. So a couple of fixes in Sunspire that should make things, for the Yolnakreen, this should make things a little bit easier, although not really that big of a change. Laquestes, this is probably going to make things easier if I can figure out what Relentless Gale is. And Naviantas was made harder with now more additional spawns and more health on that downstairs mechanics on hard mode. Everything else here pretty much is not really related to combat, so we'll skip all of this. Nothing in Morrowind, nothing in Wrathstone. Combat and gameplay. Fixed, I think this is a visual bug with Fear. And there is a buff to the Dragonknight Standard ability, which is the ultimate for Dragonites under the Ardent Flame line. So they increased duration of the ability and Standard might morph to 16 seconds at all ranks, and now Dragonknight Standard will now rank up in 1.1% damage per rank. And now it's considered damage over time rather than direct damage. So just fix there. So pretty nice. This is generally going to be a small buff overall for Dragonknight Standard. So DKs, you guys did get a little bit of a buff here. For Nightblades, this is the big change that everybody's been talking about on the official forums, and I haven't been on their subreddit yet, but I'm sure there's already a topic on there on the subreddit concerning this change. So Incapacitating Strike. This morph no longer applies minor mangle or stuns the target when cast with 120 or more ultimate. Instead, it now silences the target for 3 seconds when cast with 120 or more ultimate. Additionally, when slotted, it now grants Reeve, which restores up to 100 magic and stamina when dealing damage with a light or heavy attack on a target with a negative effect active on them. So this is a huge change to the way Incapacitating Strike works. So for those of you guys who don't know about the silenced effect, this is an effect that is placed on you, most commonly seen from negate magic. It's basically makes it so you cannot cast any abilities that use magicka whatsoever. So that's pretty much all your shield abilities and a lot of your burst heals which use magicka. So this is an incredibly strong buff to Incapacitating Strike. Previously, it was basically you would get stunned with Incap, you would break free, and hopefully you would be able to heal yourself up before you get killed. Now it's basically you get hit with Incap and you can't do anything for 3 seconds essentially. You can't heal, you can't shield yourself, and you're pretty much gonna be dead because you don't have a heal and you don't have a shield. So this is a pretty significant change in PvP. Even I, who do not very PvP very often, knows that this is a humongous buff, and Incap is pretty much going to be broken if it is launched in this manner. So really, guys, definitely, I don't want to say flip the table just yet, but as the PTS still hasn't gone live as of the recording of this video, and so we haven't been able to test it out yet. But this doesn't look good for PvP. This is quite an insane buff for Incap for PvPs. Dark Cloak will now heal for 6% of your max health per tick rather than 4.5%, so a small buff for you Nightblade tanks here compared to what it was previously. It's still a little bit weaker compared to how it is currently. It's still a heal over time rather than a burst heal, but a little bit of gave you a little bit of a bone here with a little bit stronger tick compared to what it was previously. And then they just fixed a couple of issues. Race Against Time was another skill that they decided to change up here, so it no longer becomes cheaper as it ranks up. It reduced the snare and mobilization immunity to 1 second from 4 seconds, and the immunity duration now increases as the ability ranks up to a maximum of 2 seconds. And then they fixed a couple of things with item sets. The big one is the Eye of Navitas one. So the cost reduction granted from the set now applies to Bash, Dodge Roll, Break Free, and Sprint, and the 6-second cooldown is now applied per target. So previously, Eye of Navitas would basically be on cooldown for 6 seconds as soon as somebody uses it, so you can't reapply it for 6 seconds after somebody uses a synergy. Now it doesn't matter, as long as that same target does not activate a synergy again, they'll be able to get you'll be able to apply this buff to everybody else. So I have Navitas. Whenever an ally activates a synergy, you and whoever activated the synergy gets a 12% cost reduction to magicka and stamina abilities for 3 seconds, and this is on a 6-second cooldown. This is a general buff to Eye of Navitas. Very, very nice for healer sustain because you're obviously throwing out a lot of synergies. It remains to be seen how well it does on DPS. Somebody pointed out to me when we were discussing this that even if you're able to get 1 synergy on cooldown, so synergies have a cooldown of 20 seconds, 3-second duration, you're only looking at a 15% uptime on a 12% cost reduction, which ends up being only 1.8% cost reduction on average, which is much lower than what Worm and Hercene gives, which is 4%. So in order to break even, you would need to have about a 33% uptime on the Eye of Navitas buff, which is fairly difficult to achieve. So you would basically need to get at least 2 synergies going, and you'd be able to have to activate them within 6 seconds of each other. So a little bit tricky. Even though this is a general buff, because now you can apply it to pretty much everybody as a healer, it's still probably going to be a little bit weaker than Worm and Hercene on average, just because it lasts for such a short period of time. If it lasted for something like 4 or 5 seconds on an 8-10 second cooldown, it would be a little bit better. But as it is right now, I still would be hesitant to say Eye of Navitas should be placed on a healer in PvE trial scenario. This is a big change for healer sustain, like I said, because it does apply that 12% cost reduction to you. So it's really, really nice for healer sustain, but for DPS sustain, not that good. Worm and Hercene are still going to be stronger. And then beyond that, they just fixed a couple of other things here. A lot of just other fixes. There was one fix that I actually glanced over because it is under housing. This is a furnishings. Trying to find it here. It'd be easier if I decided to do this. So the Iron Atronach, which also known as the Raid Dummy, has a couple of bugs associated with it. We don't believe it was applying pressure or alkosh correctly. So now they've corrected a few more interactions with the Iron Atronach dummy. So now you will not double up or lose any of effects just because you decided to place these effects. The big one probably being Engulfing Flames. And now it should be calculating values for Fracture and Breach correctly. So I still need to go back in once the PTS goes live and check the actual resistance values, but they should be around just a little bit under 6,500. So I'll just be using the two-handed ultimate and seeing just how much resistances the dummy should have. So again, it should be around just a little bit under 6,500 resistances if all the debuffs and buffs are applied correctly. That's the number that I'm going to be looking for once the PTS goes live. So that is going to be it for this particular review of the patch notes. So the big change here is the Incap change. So guys, really go into the PTS, test this out, whether that's through duels, going into Cyrodiil. I know there's not many people on the PTS, so duels is probably going to be the best way to test this out. But definitely, if you guys think this is overpowered, definitely, if you have a forum account, make a post on the official forums. Otherwise, go on to PTS, do /bug and submit a report that way, or just make a lot of noise, contact your class reps and let them know that this is a really bad change for PvP balance. That is it for this video. As usual, link in the description below to the full patch notes if you guys are interested in the rest non-combat related stuff. Hope you guys found this video informative, and I'll see you guys in the next dungeon.